introduce the guest?
I can certainly do that. So, Nicholas Soutter graduated from Clark University with bachelor's degrees in philosophy and psychology. He's authored several essays and books on politics and social science, as well as science fiction, including The Water Thief and Confessions of a Sin Eater. He used to run the Humanist Codex and now hosts a secular news and educational channel called In Time. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Good,
Well,
good to be back.
well, we
Uh,
are glad to have you back. Thank
I'm
you for joining us.
I'm not talking to you, Kara. Sorry.
Oh, fair. Okay, I'll see myself out.
No, that was universe. Really? Daniel had to correct you. Really? He even pointed it out before.
Hey, I typed it correctly. I just
There's no point in going forward. Education clearly does not exist in the verse.
Punishment for Kara. She has to watch the whole series again.
Oh no, how will I ever get through all of the
No.
seasons?
You know, some.
Uh-huh.
Ooh,
Uh-huh.
ouch.
And the
Uh-huh.
question
Yeah,
Ouch.
is, do
keep
you
keep
watch them?
insulting me on my show. See what happens next.
The question, Kara, is do you watch them in the order
Okay.
that the scrambled order that they were presented, which totally ruined their chances of success, or the actual order that they were created, which is the order they're on the Blu-rays and DVDs?
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, they put the
Yeah.
pilot like third. It was awful, awful, awful.
Oh, because I never watched it when it was on
No, it was
originally.
marketed awfully. They didn't care. They put like they kept, just changing it around and put the sports ball games on instead of it, and then never showed. It was awful, awful, awful.
And it's not serialized, so the plot actually continues from episode to
So it
episode to episode.
matters. That is correct. It
So the
freaking
order
matters.
actually matters.
Yeah.
So it's like you'd be watching it going like, wait, when did she get the
Yeah.
power to do this while
Right.
somebody else is now afraid of, and these
Right.
people aren't talking?
And then in the
What
third
the?
episode, they're clearly introducing people for the first time that you have seen in two episodes. What are they doing?
I know. It's just.
Oh no,
Mm.
it's like someone almost had a good idea there, and then the execution just
Yeah.
wasn't quite there. But well, I'm actually kind of interested in hearing your take on the poll question, though, Nick. Should we go straight to the poll question results now, or
Uh,
save some
but before
suspense for later?
we can do anything you want. I just want to say one thing about education before we start. And
Yeah, well, let's do that.
my suspicion is we're going to undermine half of what I'm going to say throughout the discussion if we have an honest discussion about it. But in my view, education, I love what Aaron Sorkin wrote about it in The West Wing. Education is the silver bullet. It is the answer to all of the problems. It's the answer to climate change. It's the answer to how do we live longer. It's the answer to how do we have more time, free time. It's the answer to uh, every problem we have is solved with enough education. Um, there's some caveats and so on and so forth, but that's what I believe education is. That's why I'm such a fan of education and think it's so important. So with that, starting with that understanding of what is education and why it's important, we can unpack what it means, but that's why it's important.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you started with that because that was going to be my first question for you, which is why is it important that we talk about this? Because we do talk a lot about things like critical thinking on this show and different ways of educating yourself. But what I love about your perspective, Nick, is you bring kind of a little bit of the philosophical component to it as well, in addition to being a practitioner of education.
Well, the US has an interesting relationship with this. I'm going to assume a more international audience who doesn't actually have this kind of problem. In the US, it's a uniquely US problem, which is we're so large. We're actually sort of made up of, I think it's 12 distinct cultures and sort of country cultures that you could break us up into. And
Hmm.
but the two that I find most helpful is north and south of essentially the Mason-Dixon line. Everybody north of the Mason-Dixon line thinks education is essentially this ivory tower thing. You go, you study, you go to university, so on and so forth. A lot of people south of the Mason-Dixon line in a lot of states down there, they're like, no, education, that kind of education is a waste of time. What you need to be doing is focusing on your family, focusing on working hard and working with a community and yada, yada, yada. Not that those two are necessarily mutually exclusive things, but um, so, and they would probably define education differently. So
Mhm.
the value of it and how we even define it, what we think it means, changes even just in the US, let alone, you know, uh, for religious people, an education probably starts with the Bible and
Mhm.
reading it. Now, I think uh, educated people should have a very good understanding of the Bible. But what does that really mean at this point? What is that understanding? So we're going to have a different people are going to consider yourself educated if you know how the Bible contrasts with what we've learned about the natural world versus if you assume that everything in the Bible is true. Is that educated? It is by some people's standards. So who gets to define what is education is extraordinarily important. It's very important right now in the US with Trump and getting rid of it. And people south of the Mason-Dixon line are like, yeah, get rid of the education department. Yeah, let's get rid. And it's sort of like they have a different view, and it's similar. What is an education? Nazi Germany had a different view of what constitutes an education. So we are, despite what I said earlier about how much I love education, who determines what an education is or what it means to be educated or even to know something? That becomes very hard, and that's where I, as the philosopher, start to like poke holes in it and do stuff like that.
I think that's fascinating that you said, I think you said 12 distinct cultures.
Mhm.
I get so many calls from international people when we get to talk about religion. Well, in your culture in America, and they just assume it's monolithic across.
Mhm.
Uh, is There was a wonderful, I think it was a Newsweek, said the US is actually 12 different, it was based on a book, it's 12 different, there's El Norte, there's Yankton, New Canada, all sorts of different, and they broke down, and it was really hilarious because as I read, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm. Oh yeah, that's what. So in especially in the South, in accepting the area around New Orleans, which is this pocket of liberals that are the strangest mix of North and South in New Orleans. Outside of that, you get this huge rugged individualism, right? This idea that, if you rely on the government in any way, you are a bad person. It reflects badly on you. Where I come from, I'm in Massachusetts. It's sort of like, yeah, can I get a government paycheck? How do I get one of those? Wait a minute. Where's my insurance? So yeah, it's the US is Europeans tend to underestimate just how big the US is.
Yes, I find this with a lot of my European friends where, they will sometimes it's not unless or until they have traveled to the United States that even though, we've all seen a map before, but I guess this is another sort of different type of knowledge or education. There's seeing it on a paper and then going and experiencing it and realizing, "Oh, this is so much larger than I realized it was going to be. Now I understand why you all don't travel internationally as much as we do. Well, it's because our country is as big as your continent, basically. Um, and
It's more of a commitment for us if we want to go visit other than Canada or Mexico. It's a commitment.
right, right, exactly. And I think maybe some of our European friends take for granted that opportunity that they have, but at the same time, I think it kind of leads us to sometimes forget, how many rich, different kinds of traditions we have here at home to experience. I guess it could go either way.
So I don't normally when we did the topic of the show, I wanted to make sure I would say something early on the outset, which is I don't necessarily consider education a formal education. I'm a certified high school teacher. I'm certified for English and history in high school and middle school. But for me, I mean, we've all been like, well, that was an education. You know, it's like what you go through. So, I mean, life teaches you constantly, and how you adapt to that and how you learn from that is important. There are people who just sit there and let life happen and don't learn from it. And then there are people who sit there and say, I don't want to make that mistake again. One of the really interesting things, if I may have said this, even now I'm saying they're going, if I said this on this show before, go back 5,000 years and you will notice something about human beings, which is the most educated areas are always the most populous areas. Universally, period, end of discussion. It's still, and you can still find it now, and they're the more liberal areas. So the more liberal areas are going to be the more populated areas, always. Why? Because you are required in your day-to-day engagements to meet people of different genders, sexes, ideologies, religions, so on and so forth. And you are required to educate yourself about them enough that you can at least communicate. Oh, I shouldn't say this or say that. You know, I need to realize that, oh, the gender thing does matter. You know, it's like you don't have to confront any of that if you're out in the boondocks somewhere. So you're some of the most educated people I've found are just people who have spent their lives living, going, you know, they've explored life, they have met people, and they've met people who are well learned, and they've learned from them as well. And they're like, oh, so Dumas wrote a book called The Count of Monte Cristo. Tell me about it. You know, they haven't read it, but they know about it. So, but it becomes a lot harder to be bigoted, be racist, to hate when you are forced to interact in the same environment as people you do not understand, because you eventually learn to understand them. So that is another example of how education, I'm using education in a slightly different word, a way that some people would not agree with using, some people would. Having said that, part of education is coming to terms with a universe that does not bend to the way you would like it to be, which I'm sure all of us here have had that discussion at some point with somebody.
One of the
Certainly.
callers to the ACA show, or it might have been the line, I think it was just last weekend, had a Southern US accent, and he called in to say, everyone I've ever met knows there are only two sexes and two genders. And yeah, that was like, and then they, well, you've probably never traveled more than 20 miles from where you live. And yeah, so, yep.
Well, I love when people tell on themselves like that,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
prefacing that with everyone I've ever talked to says this,
Oh yeah.
very not correct thing. Like,
Yep. And therefore it's
hmm.
correct. And that was the whole, God, they kept him on for half hour. It was hard to listen to.
I'm going to put into this. Yeah, sorry. We are not 50 states. We are 11 nations. That's the NPR version of the article. The article is put on a bunch of different places, but Greater Appalachia, the whole. It's a marvelous article, and wherever you are, I guarantee you're going to read it and you're going to find where you came from. You're like, yep, that describes them. It's really interesting.
Ooh, I can't wait to read about let's see, what area am I in? I'm in the oh, that's interesting. I thought I was going to be in the deep south, but I think if I'm looking at the counties correctly in Texas, I'm in Greater Appalachia.
Yep,
I
that's
did not realize that extended into Texas, but there we
and
go.
then,
I
and then you
mean,
can
as
see
far
New
as the
France.
yeah.
New France, right? And again, it also has a lot to do with where we were colonized from. But speaking of
Mm.
education, most Americans don't realize how different we are if you haven't actually traveled across this country or been in any of these, you know. Spend a little time in southern Texas, you'll realize it might as well be a different country. Uh,
It really is very different. Having grown up in Texas and traveled throughout it, let me tell you, especially when you can drive for 12 hours, and you're still driving through Texas. You have not even left the state yet. It is a very large area, and really different situation depending on where you are in it. Can speak from experience there.
Wow, I'm looking at the map and there's a line that cuts directly through the middle of New Jersey. And we live right on that border. And I got to say, when I had a job in the South, and all the people who grew up in the South were very different from me coming just from a little further north.
I have a number of friends from Jersey who are like, that line's really there. It's really there. I'm
Yeah.
just like, really? And they're like, it's
Wow.
that good. It is an impressive article.
Wow.
But
Oh, wow.
one of the things I'd like to point out, though, is when breaking us up into just conservatives and liberals,
Mhm.
the conservatives have this tendency to think, and especially now where the older conservative idea has morphed very weirdly. The U.S. is undergoing some really bizarre changes, but essentially the idea is that education is best determined at the state level. What should every child learn, and what is important? State level, done. Some benefits to that, some significant drawbacks. In my view, but this is part of now where my education has brought me, because I used to be religious. In my view, at a minimum, even if you're religious, you cannot support, the 12 commandments at a courthouse. Why not? Well, render unto Caesar. God has said that there's a delineation. The founding fathers have said there's a delineation, and we don't want that. And we don't want our children, let people at home teach whatever religious views that they're going to teach, whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, atheism, whatever it is, and let the schools teach the schools. Having said that, when you get south of the Mason-Dixon line, and especially into not Greater Appalachia, Deep South, like, no, religion should be in schools, man. just take us, put the Bible in every single school. So now we've got this huge question again. Whose job is it to determine what is a good education? And in the Deep South, they're going to have a very different view on that over Yankton. Now,
Mhm.
so now how do you handle that? And that there's a lot of sort of short and long-term ways of dealing with that. Again, communication is in my view the single best way to deal with that problem. But you're now getting into a problem where I've just said education is the silver bullet. And now if you take a look at that map, huge swaths are going to define education very differently and are going to say, no, I do not want geology that says that there are core samples of the earth where you can see strata that show the various epochs. And we have a timeline, and the species that we found in there correspond to what we've discovered in the genome, that corresponds as well to what we've discovered in anthropology, all to show evolution. Like, they're like, no, you can't. From my perspective, they're uneducated. They don't understand it. From their perspective, I've simply learned made up stuff. So how do you, and I'll put this question out before I give what I would propose as an answer. How do you find a solution to that?
I love that you're doing everyone's job. This is great. We joked at the beginning about what if we just had AI do the whole episode, but we could have you do the whole episode. You ask your own questions and answer them. I am loving this.
You remember me the last time too. This is what I said. Getting me to talk is easy. That is really easy. It's getting me to shut up that's the trick. Very few people have sort of learned that.
Well, this is
Any
why we
thoughts?
have you on. We want to hear from you.
So you're the one.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, I asked the question. I'm not answering it until someone takes a stab at it.
Okay. So the question is basically how do we adjudicate when we have different views of what constitutes an education? Is that roughly
Yeah,
the
I
question?
think yeah, I would take that. Yeah.
Hmm. I okay. So maybe I'm taking the easy out here as the social scientist weighing in on this. I see that as a question of power and politics. Whoever controls the narrative and has the power to decide is the one who is going to, well, determine that for everyone involved. Now, what is the philosophical answer?
Well, and that is the better answer in as much as, okay, so what did the employed philosopher say to the unemployed philosopher?
What?
Would you like fries with that? Um, so I do think that these ideas are important, and the basement of psychology is philosophy. Philosophy is the basement for a lot of, philosophy is what's left over after something spins off from it, and um, philosophy's done a great deal of work. If the U.S. is, I think, in a lot of trouble right now, and we've had a very hard time dealing with facts. Facts are we have. I'm going to talk a little politics. I'm hoping is that all right? I'm not going to.
Yes, it's fine. You are welcome to express any and all opinions that you wish. RFR as an organization is a nonprofit, so we don't endorse or not endorse any particular candidate for office or anything like that. But we are free to talk about political issues, and you are free to have any opinion that you want to have and
Well,
tell us all about it.
perfect. It is an indisputable fact that Donald Trump has violated numerous court orders. It's an indisputable fact that we have taken innocent people and put them in one of the worst prisons on the planet in El Salvador, and we are refusing to bring them back. These are indisputable facts. Me sitting here and talking about them and saying, well, this is philosophically how it happened, isn't going to bring the guy home. What's going to bring the guy? I like that. I love watching Daniel's reaction because it's actually telling me I know I'm on base. I'm in the strike zone of where I'm trying to go. So your answer is the correct answer insofar as that's what we need to do is to get our ideas out there, and the ideas that the U.S. has accepted the levels of corruption that we now have, which I won't get into because it would take too long. But the idea that we can bully everybody and it's all about the money, and it's all about these deals that don't really mean anything, and it's all about who knows who, not about who's qualified. So, yeah,
Well,
stand up.
you don't think we have the most qualified people running all the departments of the government now? Yeah, we live in idiocracy. What can I say?
Yeah.
You remember that scene in Idiocracy where the president opens fire with a machine gun in the House chamber? It's
Oh my goodness.
I didn't see it, but I no, I don't see him doing that. I do see him declaring the Insurrection Act within 7 days. And he's already violated, he's going to get around posse comitatus with the, we're doing a show on that tonight. Right after this, I'm going to a show to talk about, okay, what laws has he broken now? And how is
Amazing.
he about to like take other elements of the Constitution and say they don't exist?
Well,
Um,
be sure and share the link for your show at the end with folks
ooh,
who might want to go join.
I will do that. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
your view is very important. The one that I would suggest from an educational perspective and from a philosophical one, which is what you said, philosophy. That's where the BA is, anyways. A fact is that which most closely, well, a fact is that which comports with reality. Um, our senses are fallible, so we're not always 100% sure. And one of the great things about science is any piece of knowledge is always subject to further revision upon getting more information. So what I would argue is I would say, look, we all need to find a way to make it through as best we can in this world. Anything that helps us do that is positive, so long as we're good to each other and so on and so forth. We've accomplished more in the last 400 years using the scientific method and critical thinking than we have in the 100,000 years before that. So what I want is what works. Fluorinating the water works. you don't have to, if you decide you don't want to even know how it works, it works. We know it works, we know why it works, and we know that it doesn't have adverse side effects because we've been doing it for however long we have in the US, and it's done exactly what it was intended to do. So what I would argue when going head to head with somebody else who says, well, I have a set of facts and you have a set of facts and they disagree, where do we go? Sort of like, well, I don't need to sit here and say that mine contradict yours for X, Y, or Z reason. It's just we know that these things work. And so that's why and it's supported by the following facts. So I try to stay out of whether it works because of evolution or because God decreed that it worked. Save that argument for another day, but children should understand what the marshmallow test is and how and why passing it is the single best indicator of success in life. Single best indicator
Ah,
of success in life is whether or not you pass the marshmallow test.
and so do you wanna tell us a little bit about the marshmallow test for anyone that's not familiar?
I walk up to a child and say, you can have one marshmallow right now, here it is, or I will give you two marshmallows tomorrow. Which do you prefer? Best indicator of future success in life is at the age of 7 or older, being able to pass the marshmallow test and say, I want two tomorrow. It's delayed gratification. They figured out that patience is its own thing. There is such a thing as patience, and it can be a virtue. It's obviously a vice too in some cases. But being patient when uh, uh, what is it? All evil needs to succeed is for good men to do nothing. There is a time when patience is bad as well, but it's our ability to predict into the future that gives us power to control things. That control, whether it's how we get food and make sure the food's safe, we cooked it, so we were able to make sure that it's um, oh, now I'm going way off the rails. I'll wait for another question, I think, before I.
That's fair, that's fair. I was just thinking about that marshmallow test. I think we've talked about that, on some previous episodes or maybe a previous episode, and I think we had an interesting conversation a while back about, some additional kind of context that came out around that, I think being that there may be, like, some cultural and social factors that would go into how well people would perform on that test. Right? So it's not necessarily just an innate quality, but may have to do with, well, learning in a social sense, or a cultural sense, whether people are accustomed to um, behaving in a particular way, whether it's around like standards of politeness for accepting or putting time off, or obviously if someone is
Even
starving.
apparently, so as I recall, socioeconomic conditions were
Hmm.
not accounted for. So that,
Yeah.
Really?
yes, if you're like come from a home where
Oh,
food is scarce, and you were testing them, yeah, then they're going to be grabbing that. And yeah, they didn't do well in life because they came from bad socioeconomic backgrounds. So anyway, there's a complication about that came out fairly recently, I believe, that maybe it wasn't the best studies done, and yet that has become the just factually, like you've heard, that this is real, and there might be problems there.
Yeah. And I wonder if I find that fascinating too. Like you were talking earlier about how, like, any piece of knowledge may be subject to further review. And
Mhm.
I, for one, get excited when scientific studies come out and say, "Hey, but wait a minute, we found these potential additional factors that may be at play here." And I feel like one of them is kind of a matter of social learning, that children at the age of 7 may or may not have been exposed to yet. In terms of,
But I remember when this came up last time, I said, I'm so glad I was a mechanical engineer because the facts of physics don't change. It's very hard
usually.
to get psychology
usually.
correct.
It's all relative.
Oh dear. Um, Well, so this gets into a further problem because in order to be educated, you need certain tools and you need to be taught those tools in general.
Yes.
Yes. So, all of us have heard this before too. Well, um, evolution is just a theory. Mm, theory doesn't mean the same thing. Like, yeah, that's
Right.
like saying gravity is just a theory. I mean, jump off the Empire State Building and hover there for 5 minutes and explain to me how gravity is just a theory. So you have to understand what a fact is in science, because a fact in science doesn't necessarily mean the same thing. And we so this requires a level of abstract thought that some of us are not actually very good at. There are people who really
Mm,
prefer and are very good at concrete thought. And there is some abstraction needed to say, well, this is true, but it could be modified. Um,
yeah.
and it's the same level of abstraction. My father was a lawyer, so when you get into the law, it's actually you think it's like, well, the law says this. Oh no, oh no! It's like the Supreme Court has said that Trump has to return the guy. Did they though? He said he has to facilitate
Mm.
the return. What does facilitate mean? What does, and now all of a sudden it's like, and this is again where you get people who are more conservative and people who are concrete thinkers who say, listen, you know what it means, return the guy. But well, yeah, but that's not what it says. and
Yes.
and so now you've got this question of how far do you go in questioning. Listen, I could get us all down to solipsism. Well, I couldn't get us all down to solipsism. I could get myself there.
Oh
Um,
no.
No,
oh,
don't
that
go
was a
there.
good
Don't go there.
joke. Don't. Oh, it went over all of your heads, but that's okay. Um, um, if I get everybody down to solipsism, then really I'd be the only. Okay, fine, fine. You know what? I
Oh.
did. I did actually. I used to attend a meeting of the Solipsis Club of Boston, but I was the only one who ever went.
Oh.
Anyways,
Ah, but
Oh.
uh, I tell this joke. I may have. I told the same joke on the. What is it? No, I won't because I think I did it last time. So,
I mean, we
anyways,
might have different people listening this time. I'm
oh dear
all
Lord.
about a good repeat joke.
Okay, okay. So, now I got to get my head into moral thought for a second, and a utilitarian, a denotologist, and a solipsist walk into a bar. The utilitarian goes up and orders a beer for everyone. Goes, to the greatest good for the greatest number. Yay! And everybody cheers. And the denotologist goes up, orders beer for everyone. To always doing the right thing. Yay! Solipsist goes up, just orders one beer, and just chugs the beer down. So the denotologist and the utilitarian go up to him and say, "Aren't you going to buy a beer for everyone?" He goes, "Just did."
Ha! Amazing.
So yeah, so how geeky am I? But it's a good way to tell like how many people are geeks in the room or nerds in the room. Anyone who laughs. That one and what is it? Schrodinger's driving a car, gets pulled over by the cops. Cops pull him out and say, "Okay, pop the trunk." He pops the trunk. There's a dead cat. He goes, "You." Police officer goes, "You realize there's a dead cat in your trunk?" And Schrodinger goes, "Well, there is now."
Oh.
That is excellent.
Okay, so speaking of barometrics of the level of education of those around you, um, that's, yeah. So the problem is education starts to get kind of fuzzy. And
Mhm.
somebody had asked this reading, can you please speak to the literacy as it pertains to reading comprehension and not just the ability to read and education? And
Yeah.
that gets into the same problem. It does start to get fuzzy when you talk about how much are you willing to tolerate and bend with how flexible you are with what we call knowledge. This is a problem that nobody's been able to solve. This is a problem that goes back to, and solipsism is actually misunderstood, because solipsism, the idea of solipsism now in philosophy, is usually used as a tool to say, basically, all you've got is that. That's all you've got. Everything else you have to build on somehow, knowing that there are faults, and you don't know where they are, and you're going to find them. And the goal is to find fewer and fewer and fewer, bump into fewer and fewer and fewer, and build bigger and better structures in your life. These are structures are your relationships, financial security, whatever it is you're doing, learning more and more about the world, and learning every now and then that half of everything you knew was wrong, and finding a way to deal with that. So if we're going to talk about knowledge, one of the first things you have to learn is it's always revisable, which is almost inherently contradictory. It's like, well, wait a minute, then what the hell is a fact? Why am I learning it if it can be revised?
Yeah.
And the answer is, well, because you can't actually prove anything. You can disprove things usually to a fair degree, but proving that something true is a whole nother. So we just have how much we're willing to tolerate, and who gets to decide that and say what's educated and what isn't is the argument. But I think spending more time teaching people basic logic, teaching people that knowledge is imperfect, but is the single best tool, the knowledge and the scientific method, the means by which we acquire knowledge. And the scientific method I'm using in a sort of a general sense, it's not actually even codified anyway in a real like sense, but the ideas of testing your universe and finding the results that you get back from it. Testing, that's what a baby does. Baby walks around, boom, hits a wall. Oh, can't do that. So that is something that you should be doing all your life, and you should never stop, and it should be celebrated. Piaget said all salient learning is painful. That's a problem, and it's true, because you have to learn if something's salient, if it affects you, that means you have to unlearn something else. That means you have to learn you were wrong in the past. No one likes to be wrong. That means that's going to cause you pain. So most of us here probably like learning to some extent and have gotten advanced degrees, but a lot of people, again, we'll talk about the Deep South. They're sitting there going, well, you wasted your degree just learning. I was here working. Oh, really? You think it doesn't take work to get a PhD? You
Oh
think
boy.
yeah. It's just a different kind of work. It's a very different kind of work, but it's a needed one because, yeah, no farms, no food. But having said that, how do you think corn was made? GMO. GMO.
Right.
And how do you think the resistance to pesticides? How do you think the modern pesticides were made? It wasn't made by the farmer. It was made by the man in the ivory tower. So I don't know. Because I'm a philosopher, I'm going to be one of those. We're going to end this. They're going to end the show, and they're just be like, "Great! I have more questions about having an education than before the show started."
It's what we strive for. That means we learned something, right? We may not have learned a factoid, but we may have learned a new way of thinking about the topic, which also counts as an education, does it not?
I would say it does. Yes.
Is there anything that you would disagree with, that is commonly, considered to be, okay, this is a standard, this is what education means, or this is what knowledge means, that is commonly accepted that you do not agree with?
Memorizing facts is not an education. It is knowledge. It is not education. It can be a part of education, but it is in some cases, a necessary, but it is never a sufficient condition for being educated. This gets back into, again, that can you please speak to literacy as it relates to reading comprehension, not just the ability to read and education. So I can read. Uh, there was so someone asked the president of of El Salvador, whether or not he was going to release that innocent guy that they've got. And his reply was, are you suggesting that I smuggle a guilty man into the United States? Anyone can read that fact. Anyone can read it. It takes an education to say, okay, he is Trump's lapdog. And the reason is because he was asked specifically about an innocent man, and he answered the Trump narrative of they were all guilty. So the fact is not the education. The education is the ability to process those. The only other one is probably the best advertisement I have seen in my life. I should just have it queued up, ready to go. There was this great, it's this beautiful woman in a swimsuit. And it said, you know, at 200 DPI. You know, if you've got a printer and you're printing this out at 200 DPI, you can tell that, you know, she's beautiful and the swimsuit is blue. At 600 DPI, you can tell that the swimsuit has all of these lines and textures to them. And at 1200 DPI, you can tell she's naked. The swimsuit's painted on. But you have to go to the higher resolution to actually see that it's a painted suit. And it works. If anyone's asking, it's an old ad that, but it's just like with the swimsuit models from that have the when they did all the painted swimsuits for the Sports Illustrated thing. Anyways, at different resolutions, you're going to see a different image, and it's going to have a very different context. Reading and absorbing facts is the lowest level resolution there is. You need that resolution for the other building blocks. But people who have a hard time building it, and it's not because they're dumb, this is extremely important. Some of the smartest people I've met have zero patience for quote, getting an education, going through the education system. Cannot do it. The reason is either they are too concrete in their thinking, or way too abstract. The geniuses who end up walking out of Harvard University or whatever, we've all seen the trope. We know and it's happened. Nash, I forget, quit the university. Einstein, like all these guys quit. The reason was they were so abstract. The classes were tying them down, and they're like, you need to understand things this way. Like that's not how it works. And I don't want to learn the wrong. You're missing something, because if you had it right, we wouldn't have all these other problems here. So I'm going to go solve your problems for you. Bye. So some people can be geniuses, but too concrete or too abstract to learn in the current educational system. I think there are ways to deal with it. I think our education system deals with it very poorly. I think the Department of Education could have helped in setting up those guidelines. We'll never know. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were gonna have comments on the Department of Education given the current times and your topic here. I'm actually curious, as someone who may not be familiar with every single thing that the Department of Education used to do. What do you think the impacts are going to be on how we define education and who gets to make those determinations without uh, a federal Department of Education compared to how it has been previously?
Won't change. It's a misconception. The Department of Education does not actually mandate educational requirements to any of the states. What they have done is typically they do programs for inclusion, programs for DEI. I'm sorry. My condolence. I'm sorry. I wasn't going to say that on your channel. You've been demonetized. You're
Oh
gone. I
no,
just took your
whatever
YouTube.
will we do? We said the bad
I
words.
said it's verboten. I said DEI.
Oh
Their job
no.
was to make sure that underserved communities, the United States does something phenomenally stupid, which is that for the most part, we have uh, states give money to schools based on property taxes. The
Mhm.
problem is then if it's a poorer neighborhood, they're not going to have as good a school, and they're the ones who need the schools or they need more money. So the job of the Department of Education was to help find those problems and give grants to underserved schools that weren't receiving proper um, help that they needed from the states in order to operate as a school, but they had no impact on curriculum itself. So
Mhm.
it's not going to change that discussion. I think getting back to that map, you're going to have a problem having, and this conservatives who've said we're 50 states, we're not one country. And that is how we were made, by the way. That was the intent of the founding fathers. We've evolved. That was also the intent of the founding fathers. Having said that, you're going to have a hard time finding one Department of Education that is going to suit the needs of all of those areas and that diverse view of what an education entails and should be, and how
Mhm.
much is sufficient education. So I think I would like to see a Department of Education. I'd like to see it robust. China is working very hard on having the highest educated students. I've looked at their educational programs. They are very, very good. The Japanese, I think, are doing it better. Japanese have some issues with theirs. One problem is uh, you talk to me, hopefully you can tell I'm passionate about this topic. Um,
Mhm.
Hiring teachers who can just do the facts and forcing kids to learn the facts without doing the understanding is easier, but it doesn't accomplish the proper goals in my view. China
Mhm.
thinks in terms of generations. They have plans in terms of generations, and they are preparing the next generation to prepare the next generation, and so on and so forth. Trump, I hope we make it through the next week. Yeah, I just your guess is as good as mine. This show may never air because it could be anarchy. We don't know. But in terms of having I think we should have a federal department that mandates that a knowledge of the scientific method and how it works, and why it's important. And there's a reason it's fundamentally important. I mean, it's the only thing that's done this. This is the thing that I when I talk to, and I've done a few. I don't debate. I don't do anti-theism debates. I've done a few. If you go to my channel, you'll see I debated S.J. Thomason, Spertalites, a few others. Uh, Hovind, because everybody's required to do that. I did it before it was. Is it popular?
Before
Has
it
it
was
ever been?
cool?
Yeah, it was never cool. Um, but
Yet. Maybe
yeah,
not yet,
yeah,
but
I know.
we can
Well,
still say you did it before it was cool.
yeah, that's true. That's bingo,
Ha
bingo.
Games
Thank
with
you.
words.
Well, no, it's just affirming the consequent. I affirmed the consequent, and you blew me out of the water for it. Well done, touche. So, uh, um, okay.
Yeah. Moving on.
The evidence seems reasonably clear, and I mean, and you can tell whether evidence is good, but based on its ability to predict things and its repeatability and sort of what you can do with it. And we have found just overwhelming evidence that we have been on this planet for a minimum of 100,000, maybe 200,000 years, just us as a species. Ancestors going further back than that. Let's say 100,000 years to be as generous as possible. In that period of time, we invented rope, glue, the wheel, a few other really cool things, until about 400 years ago. 400 years ago, we didn't invent, we discovered really that our brains are not wired for accuracy. This is the thing. We all think our brains are wired for accuracy. They are not. They're wired for efficiency. This is a bad example for a million reasons. don't contradict me on it. Just go with it. Suspend your disbelief for a second. You're on the savannah. You're being chased by a tiger. Yes, I know tigers can climb trees. Suspend disbelief. You're being chased by the tiger. There are 3 trees in front of you. You don't have to find the best tree to climb. You just have to find any tree to climb as fast as possible that you can climb high enough that the tiger doesn't get you. That's all you have to do.
And that you climb faster than the other people you're running with.
Yes, yes. Run faster than that's why all my friends are slow. I'm
That's
wearing
that's for
Nikes right now.
bears.
Oh,
Ah,
so our brains are geared for efficiency. And what we learned was if we stopped and thought about it, we could come up with a set of rules that are more effective than our natural intuition for figuring things out. Look at the sun. Your intuition tells you it's moving around you. It's not. It's just not. But nobody can help but have that intuition. Our intuitions betray us. So we invented this method of examining the world that we decided maybe could operate better. In that 400-year span, we put a man on the moon. We invented antibiotics, electricity, air conditioning, bypass surgeries, and antibiotics, if I didn't already say. Just think of the number of things that we've done in the last 400 years compared to the 900,000, 900 and 600 or 600 before that. That's something people should understand how and why we do it and why it works, especially if they're going to sit there and contradict it. You can go ahead and contradict the scientific method, but only if you know how it works first. No. Second, you say it's a theory. No. Yeah. So that's it. I think a federal agency that sets a minimum bar that includes the basics of formal logic, the basics of how to interpret what you see around you, and how to take a little extra time to deconstruct new information and make sure that that is taught in every single school in the country, and then give the states a pretty broad berth past that.
yeah. So this, I think, is where this topic, or one of the areas where this topic about knowledge and education kind of intersects with the concept of recovering from religion, in that we currently have this political situation, at least in the United States, where for some people, there may be a religious tradition bound up with some of this anti-intellectualism that we see floating around. This idea that maybe knowledge and education is bad, and perhaps to your earlier point, that depends on how someone is defining education. They may mean the university degrees are bad. They may not mean that working hard at a job and gaining life experience is bad. Um, but this kind of gets into a situation, I think, for a lot of people where they may feel that they have been sort of not disenfranchised, although that maybe that too, but maybe missed out on an opportunity to get an education when they were younger that taught them about things like the scientific method or critical thinking or critically evaluating ideas, because that was not the type of learning that was valued in their particular religious community. And I know we're kind of seeing some of that writ large now in our politics as well. Do you have any kind of corrective recommendations for people who experience that either personally or when we're seeing that on a larger scale?
Find a friend. Um, hey, not to be too much of a downer. One reason I like history is, those who don't understand history are doomed to repeat it. And on our show, we have a former Navy commander who graduated from the War College with honors, specialization in history. And what he and I have done is taken everything that happened um, uh, in Hitler's rise to power in Germany and equated it to the timetable here. So, and that includes, by the way, like the beer hall push, that's happened. Hitler actually tried to overthrow the government once and failed. Okay, and we're basically waiting on. I think the next one is going to be the military, in particular, but citizens pledging allegiance to Trump, not to the flag. So we're like, okay, that's in 36. So we're right now we're up to 1934.
Have you seen the thing with the Congress people wearing Trump's face on their lapel instead of the American flag?
I have not. You are not. You're kidding.
No, I am not.
Jesus. And one of the things that he did, and one of the things that Mussolini did, one of the things that Ceausescu and Mao in particular. Oh boy, Mao! Mao killed more people than all of them combined, but than all those combined, yeah. One of the things that they did was go after the intellectuals first. Went after the intellectuals, and the reason, because the intellectuals could see what they were doing. The intellectuals could figure it out and put the pieces together and say, "Wait a minute, this is a problem." So,
And may have already done so during perhaps a period of time where we were dealing with a medical situation to which there were medical solutions, and instead we were hearing conspiracy theories that intellectuals may have spoken out against.
yes.
Just throwing that out there as, a hypothetical thing that could have happened.
Okay, I want to correct myself.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I looked it up while we were talking. It wasn't a congressperson. It was just the FCC chairman. And I put the link in the chat.
Thank you for the correction. It's an important correction,
Yeah.
but the point still stands, so I appreciate it. Yeah, and that's a problem. And so he's going to continue to. I can tell you what he's going to do. I can tell you what he's going to do because I know history, because I've seen situations like this, and I know his personality pretty well. So this is again where it comes to the difference between facts and being able to actually put them together and create something new. What he's going to start to do is to make sure that he makes it harder for people to distinguish between the presidency and him, and America and him. And he already does that in his language. He does that when he's negotiating with other people. The idea that the presidency is in office is already, that was lost on him the first term. So there was a lawyer who resigned from the first firm that capitulated to his demands to these firms is insane, including I think 400 legal hours. I forget the name of the firm that capitulated, but they said, okay, do that, we'll capitulate. And they got their federal contracts back. They got their security clearances back. But now he gets to dictate who their clients are. And here's why. First of all, 400 hours working for anyone he wants. But let's say they're about to help a Democrat who is suing for something in some area, in some state, whatever. He just says, oh, I want you to give 1 hour to the Republican on the other side. Now there's a conflict of interest, and they can't give any of their time to it. So he controls all of it. He now controls who they do and do not work for, because he can create conflicts of interest. Now, the only people that they can ever work for ever again support Trump. So the number 2 person there, she resigned, and she said, look, all the American Bar Association, all the lawyers, and my father was a lawyer, passed away a few years ago, and he said, what you'll know that we're heading towards fascism when they go after all the lawyers. Why? A, they're highly educated. B, they're educated about how the rules and regulations work. And if somebody breaks them, they're the first ones who can tell you, no. So when they go after the lawyers, and he's going after the lawyers, and he's going after the judges too, which is really pretty amazing. And the Supreme Court is so corrupt that they can't stop him because they'd have to admit, what Thomas has been doing, or Alito, or Roberts, who I don't think Roberts is as corrupt as the rest, but he's been allowing it to happen, so it's the same thing. So anyone who can see that, which by the way, unfortunately now, except me, this is what my friend Juan told me. I don't know. The Alito who? No, I'm not an intellectual. No soy, no comprendo. Oh, I'll still get kicked out. And I'll get kicked out even faster if I speak in Spanish. Um, yeah, so one of the things she said is all the law firms, no matter what side, no matter what, they all have to get together and say no. Harvard University lost 2.5 billion in federal funding because they said no.
Well, thank goodness someone finally did.
It's
I
about
mean,
time.
it really is about time. I feel like we've been waiting for that to happen. It's interesting that it was Harvard, that was the first. Do you see that as, the beginning of a trend of universities and, the educated, folks, kind of trying to challenge, a prevailing narrative that has become largely anti-intellectual?
40-60 against this being a trend. Reason is it's just one university. They haven't, to the best of my knowledge, agreed to or spoken with anyone else. They haven't called Yale or anyone else. They haven't. They've just done this individually. And the first ones through the door, the first ones through the wall are always the ones to get bloodied. So if they do it, maybe others will follow. But I'm less inclined to think that because nobody's organizing. I think she's right. The American Bar Association is a great way for law firms to this should not be happening, and the American Bar Association has been quiet for way too long. I do not know what the equivalent, if there, well, there is one. Whoever certifies colleges should probably just, yeah, it's not their job, but they should take the lead on, okay, any university at this point that gets threatened, just say no, and we will find a way to all of us work together. I forget which university just capitulated and got a whole bunch of money released. Um,
Mm.
what was it?
Well, yeah, and, you bring up a good point about organizing. It seems like this is really a moment of a major shift. I don't know if it's a philosophical shift or not, but from a position of, for many universities for, the last several years, it's been a matter of, perhaps they had more independence to simply, conduct their business and their research and, engage, in educational endeavors, largely independently. That's not to say that there aren't, funding obligations and everything like that. Of course, there are. Nothing is completely unbiased, but Um, all of a sudden now, it seems like the question of power, has come very much to the forefront, and this may be a different way of operating, when it comes to, knowledge and education and, who gets to use it, who gets to wield it, who gets to claim the primacy, of their knowledge over someone else's, shall we say, alternative facts. Um, do do you think that, universities and, the highly educated folks have the tools that they need to engage in that kind of organizing? Or are there perhaps other people that have had the correct education, to be more prepared, for that type of thing?
They do, but they're behind the eight ball. The other thing that we talk a lot about on in time is because most intellectuals are at some point fascinated with how this happened in Germany, how
Yeah.
the average German put up with the war camps and all this other stuff. And the conclusion that we've reached, because we've discussed this several times, and the conclusion we've reached, and also living through some of our own times, is a denial. It's not no, it's really the other side. And all they have to, if you don't want to believe it, all they have to do is give you enough to make it plausibly deniable. In the United States, we call that Fox News. That's it. It's there to make anything plausibly deniable so that if you've already made up your mind, you can stay comfortably where you are. There's also people who were afraid. There was shock and awe. And I think all of us in the US are going through shock and awe right now. We're all sitting there going, wait a minute, what? He's ignoring judges and nothing's happening to him. This can't be right. confusion, just it's like flashbangs going off there. These are intellectual flashbangs. So to answer your first question, yes, there are people who are terrified of what's happening. No, I shouldn't say terrified because no. There are people who are extraordinarily concerned about the state of this country and where it's headed and are seeking immediately to bring together organizations such as law firms, universities, so on and so forth, to try to put together some form of resistance to the pressure the White House is bringing to them. Also to try to alleviate some of the difficulties that the judicial system is having because they can't enforce any of their own. As somebody here said, SCOTUS can't enforce its own um, orders, and that is correct because SCOTUS said so. SCOTUS is they're the ones who told him that they've got no power over him. They literally, I've never seen, I was sitting there going, it's the first time I've ever seen one branch of government actually hand over some of its power to another. What I learned in 12th grade social studies was every branch is desperate to get just a little bit more power from every other branch at all times. Here, the Supreme Court has just been like, oh, no, you can't sue him. Throw him in jail. No, you can't throw the president in jail. What, arrest him? No. Oh, by the way, you have to return that guy. Oh, he's not following our rules. What do we do? Oh, yeah, we can't do anything. We just said he can't. Well, I didn't see that coming. Speaking of needing a better education, that was arrogance. It also takes education to learn the enemies of knowledge and the enemies of justice, and arrogance, anger, any number of things. But arrogance is the Supreme Court, and they're learning that one way too slow. So that's to answer your first question. Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? Right now, no. Not by a huge margin, but we're still too much in the shock and awe phase, and there's still too many people who are not taking this seriously. Which reminds me, so I'd wanted to say one of the most important books that anybody who's educated, I don't think you're educated unless you've read this book. Sorry.
Uh-oh. Oh, this is the test, Rob. Are you ready? We're gonna find out if we're educated or not.
I'm not psychic, but I'm predicting I'm going to fail.
1984.
Oh, yes.
Oh
Yay.
yeah.
I've read that a million times.
Yay.
I've done trivia
1984.
rounds on the book and the movies. I just watched the first movie, which was really odd.
You are the
Wait,
most
which
educated
one?
among us.
It was I don't know, I want to say 65 or something like that. I didn't even know it existed, except I was watching something about the more modern one, and there was a link. I said, wow, I have to watch this.
The hubris of making the movie 1984 in 1965.
So the person who played Winston was the guy who played why is his name escaping me? The person who ran the Death Star. Oh, what's his name? Peter Cushing.
Oh,
It's like, wow.
What?
Yeah, he looked like he was like 20 years old.
Wait, I haven't seen this version of it.
Yeah,
Wait,
it
okay.
bugged me though because they
heard
weren't
about it.
wearing the blue overalls, which are what was it, black and white, but it was they weren't overalls. They just changed too many things. The telescreen was really weird. I don't know, didn't like it.
Fair. I'm still gonna watch it.
Anyway, I'm
But
sorry. I did like so. So why are we mentioning 1984?
yeah, why is that the book that is the litmus test?
Because it's a book about education. It's a book about
Ooh.
brainwashing. It's a book about how to control people, and tell them that you're doing what's in their best interest while literally stealing and taking from them and then making them say, well, that was double plus good. It is the antithesis of education is what that book is really about. It's you want to see someone take away human integrity, human dignity, what I think I've forgotten the guy's name, but the guy who's basically interrogating Winston at the end, he's just like, I believe
O'Brien. That's O'Brien.
O'Brien. Yes, it is O'Brien. Thank
Yes.
you. I will believe what I'm told to believe. And if you're into Star Trek, I make the reference always, there are 5 lights. How many lights are there?
Mm-hmm.
It's at what point do you believe, not because you have, there are 4 lights, good, not because you've been told, but because you understand and know how to construct. Knowledge is one thing. That book is basically the anti-knowledge, and it's what you see Trump doing. It's what you see Trump doing. He's changing the language so that he is defining himself as knowledgeable because he knows all the best words. He
Who
is
controls the
defining,
past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past.
Ooh.
Oof.
Well, and that's why he's never wrong. If you see Trump, he's just like, I didn't say that. I didn't
Yep.
do that. I didn't. Reality has no meaning for him. And were we not in the times we're in now, 1984, I would still have said 1984 is a necessary element of education. It gets back into, once you understand what is happening in that book to those people and how and why, because that has happened before. That has happened many times. We are capable of being on both sides of that. That's another reason, one of the ones that I like, I don't put as necessary, but is one of my favorites, Lord of the Flies, because we've all been on both sides of that one as well. And that is the Hobbesian state of man. That's what we become when we don't have the guide rails to keep us going in the direction, the very guide rails that are being dismantled right now. It's a the reason I corrected myself earlier when I said terrifying. It's a terrifying state to be in right now if you're in the U.S. and if you see it this way and this is what you're seeing. But terrifying implies paralysis. So I try to be careful with that word because it's like it can be scary, but terrifying is like can't do anything, and it's like we can do things. So don't be terrified, be afraid, but don't be terrified.
Yeah,
Speaking of
you know,
nuance,
I
yeah.
I really appreciate you making that distinction because I mean, I do think that it's something to watch out for, especially given the 24-hour news cycle and, seeing things all day, every day that can be very upsetting. I appreciate you mentioning, okay, we can have some big emotions about what's going on, and that doesn't mean that we're doomed and to become paralyzed and to not do anything about it. I think that's a really important point. Um, do you think as we're getting kind of close to time to go to Q&A, I'll quit asking you questions and we can let other people ask, but what do you think people should be doing right now if they're experiencing a situation where what we all in this room would probably consider knowledge is kind of being contested and perhaps redefined in ways that do not, as you said earlier, comport with reality. What can we do to guard against being taken in by that? I mean, we all know we're all susceptible to propaganda. We're all susceptible to cognitive biases and everything like that. But what can we do about it to protect ourselves?
Uh, Same answer, friends. Um, for me, I don't have very many friends outside the show, but we all get together, and when I see something new, and somebody will run something by me, and they'll say, Nick, I just saw this. Does this mean what I think it does? And I take one look at it. I said, well, this is my read on it, and he's like, yeah, that's my read too. I was just like, okay. I was like, so basically, this happened when we invoked the Alien Enemies Act. And I
Hmm.
was just like, okay, he's invoking the Alien Enemies Act. And before we went live with it, just as a double check, sent it to my head mod, who's very knowledgeable. And I just said, what do you see in this? He goes, isn't this how we interned Americans who were born in the United States, raised in the United States, but had Japanese heritage, so they were detained without any rights for 2 years? Like, yeah, this is that. He goes, this is a huge problem. They're just like, okay, good. We're on the same page. Let's go to air. But the find friends, find people who, and I like I said, normally I'd say, and I still do think that we should always have communication with people outside your ideology. That started with. But having said that, You know, find people who support LGBTQ rights, find people who understand what DEI is. I mean, I don't mind if you disagree with DEI. That's perfectly fine. What I mind, just like I don't mind if you think that evolution is fake, but I do mind when you don't know what it actually says. I have yet to meet anyone who actually understands evolution, who understands it, who can repeat. If I ask a question, if I say, why can two human beings not mate and create an ear of corn? Why does evolution actually say that that can't happen? And when they get the answer to that correct, like, okay, you disagree. But what happens is basically 99% of all people, once they understand it, like, oh yeah, this kind of has to be true, doesn't it? Yeah. So, you know, if you're a lawyer, hang out with other lawyers who see it and figure out what you're going to do. Support your local bar association, support your local universities, support your whatever groups or clubs that you have that see this and are as concerned about it as you are. You know, and a quick plug, we discuss it on our show all the time. And you had said drop a link, so I've got a link. I don't know if I should drop it in the chat or if you guys have one to the show. We're going to be talking tonight about a whole bunch of stuff, but I think the best thing that people can do is talk about it and actively support people who see it. Congress did what was unfortunately largely a symbolic thing where Chuck Schumer and the head Democrats on both sides, both House and Senate, got together, held hearings, and they're like, okay, this is we're descending into authoritarianism, and here's all the evidence. I was like, great. Well, I feel a little better. At least I don't feel like I'm going schizophrenic. They see it. What are they going to do about it? And the answer seems to be that they're in a lot of this shock and awe as well. They're like, oh, we see it. It's like, okay, good. Now, hello. I will admit they've got significant limitations, but they are not, you know, they can start work. When Trump attacks a legal organization, when Trump attacks a judge and says, well, I disagree with the judge, so he should be impeached. The Senate minority leader should come out. That would be the House minority leader, so it would be the Senate. Oh dear Lord, must be getting tired. The ranking member of the House should come out and denounce him. We don't do that to judges in this country. Now, one branch, the speaker. Well, no, the speaker is the majority leader. The minority. It's the minority leader in the House. I got it.
Oh.
I got it. I was thinking. No. Oh dear. Right now, it would be both. I would think it should be both the minority leader in the House and what is it in the Senate? It's the minority leader in the Senate too. Is it minority leader in both? Oh, all of a sudden my brain is
Googling it
fried.
now.
It's the Speaker of the House and the majority leader in the Senate, so it's the minority leader but I think it's the minority leader in both. At any rate, the Dems should stand up and
Minority
say,
whip, perhaps? Someone put that.
no, the whip is another position. They should stand up and denounce it. Now, in general, one branch of government tries not to attack the other branch of government, but since they're attacking, since the executive is currently basically like a chihuahua on rabies, attacking absolutely everybody near him. No offense to rabid chihuahuas, but I think they're obligated, and especially the House, which is the speaker, which is the People's Forum, but also for the states. Senate needs to speak, and if we're in the minority in both, but speak out, and it's a risk. You're going to get primaried. Well, it's not that you're going to get primaried. Trump is going to go after you, but right now he's going after everybody as it is. It's just he's picking them off one by one right now. I will say somebody had posted this in the live chat. You can't break Picard. Yes. That's what made that episode so interesting. Was at the very end, Picard was talking to Troy, and he said the one thing he left out of his report was The last time he was asked that question, he really could see five lights. The author of that episode read 1984 and understood it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's kind of scary. Not terrifying, but scary.
There you go.
There was a meme I saw today with a Picard action figure, which said includes, and there were four lanterns. Yeah. Yeah. And it said on this package includes five lanterns, but there were four.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh.
I love that. Okay, we've got to move on to some questions and poll results, I think. But before we do, Nick, is there anything else you want to be sure and share on this topic? Because you have a lot of
I
good
I
thoughts
had a
on this.
blast. Well, it was fun to just kick it about with everybody. Everybody like brought up some ideas, and it was a lot of. I had a blast. So thank you very much for having me on again, and I'll come back anytime invited. So,
Oh,
uh,
wonderful. Well,
you know,
we'll invite you again for sure. I also had a blast. I hope the other folks here did too. And we've still got a few more minutes. What do you say we look at those poll questions?
do that. I'm gonna go call up GE too and go like, yeah, I've been on twice. How many times you been on?
All right. Well, let's see. We've got okay. The first question that we asked
I can
was
still hear you, but I'm gonna get some water. So I
oh,
will, but I
go
can still
for it.
hear you.
All good. Yeah. So we asked, how did your early education shape your current relationship with learning? And the most common answer at 43% was it inspired a lifelong love of learning, which I love to hear that. The next most common answer was it felt restrictive, but gave me a good foundation at 25%. And then about the same number of people, 11% each, selected the other options, which were it discouraged curiosity or critical thinking. I'm still trying to unlearn some of it, or some other answer. So, um,
I had an experience in grade school. Now, it was Catholic school, but I don't necessarily attribute it to the fact that it was Catholic school. But this was an early science class. I want to think I was in maybe fourth or fifth grade. I was really into astronomy, and the subject was astronomy. And the teacher, who I don't even remember if it was a nun or not, we had some white people too, said, the universe is composed of the sun and nine planets. And I raised my hand and said, do you mean the solar system, right? And she said, Robert, sit down. It's the same thing. That could have definitely smashed my love of science, but it did not because I knew she was an idiot.
I love that so
But
much. And I
all my
love,
classmates laughed at me because, of course, the teacher has to be right. So, that
oh,
wasn't
of
a good
course.
experience.
Oh, how upsetting. Uh, that inspired your lifelong love of fact checking,
Yes,
probably.
yes, that stuck.
Amazing. Okay, next question we got was when it comes to questioning beliefs you were raised with, religious or otherwise, how do you feel now? And the vast majority at 78% said empowered and more self aware. That is great to hear.
Wow.
About 11% each again selected the other options, conflicted but open to exploring, or guilty or fearful, it's still hard. I'm actually surprised to see such high numbers for these really positive experiences that people seem to have had, or at least positive journeys away from perhaps less good experiences. I
I'm
think
most
that's
shocked at the
fantastic.
answer to number three.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so the answer number three, we asked in the Firefly verse. Huh? Huh? Were the browncoats terrorists or revolutionaries? And we got 13% for terrorists, 17% for revolutionaries, and a whopping 70% chose something else,
Wow.
meaning
Hmm.
either they have not seen this program, or they think the answer may be both, or something else, as the question choice suggests. I would love to know in the chat from anybody who did pick something else what your thoughts were on that, and we can certainly unpack that further in the hangout. But I also want to know Nick's thoughts on that. And if you want to, like, for people that aren't familiar, if you want to give just like a real brief explanation, and then tell us your answer and why.
Yeah, so I think we were talking in the green room about
Y-
Firefly. Joss Whedon, right after Buffy, uh, excellent show. Only lasted one season as a result of A, significant marketing issues, B, the network didn't understand the show. They thought it was serialized, so they thought it was something like Star Trek, where you can watch any episode of Star Trek and take the Next Generation. There's 7 seasons, and you can take episode 3 and episode 207, and you can follow right along. You're okay. This wasn't that. The plot developed as time, but they showed them out of order because that cancel one for one reason and then show and then go back and show previous, and it got canceled. It was so popular they ended up making a movie called Serenity out of it, and that wrapped up what the conclusion to the series.
Which they also marketed awfully, by the way. Coincidentally, the Blu-ray or DVD at the time came out a month after Christmas.
Come
Yeah,
on.
that's what they
Yep,
did.
that's ooh.
Oof. Yeah,
So
that's bad.
in it, and the way it starts, the whole Serenity is the name of the Firefly ship that the main captain pilots, and his name is Mal, and he was a soldier, I think a sergeant or something like that, in the Brown Coats, who rebelled against the Alliance, who controlled all these planets. And um, yeah, so the question, I mean, in the show, they ended up losing. So in the show, he's essentially a bad guy, and he can't find legitimate work for the most part anyway. But anyone who was a part of the rebellion is now seen as a rebellion, not freedom fighters, but insurrectionists, and it was an interesting take. It's sort of like, who would George Washington be if the Revolutionary War failed, was what I always thought of. Although there was a couple of corrections there earlier that I thought were salient. So, anyways, yeah, it depends on where you stand on a number of issues. Serenity is a bit of a monkey's paw situation. Yeah, I like that. So, yeah. Anyways, I enjoyed the show very much.
Yeah, and did you answer the I was typing briefly to answer something in the chat, and I may have missed it. Did you give your assessment of the answer to our poll question of whether they were terrorists or revolutionaries?
Revolutionaries, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And how does that relate back to this theme that we've been talking about of knowledge and education? Um, you mentioned that this was kind of a metaphor for another event, perhaps in American history.
Well, one man's terrorist is another man's, Nelson Mandela was a terrorist. He engaged in terroristic activities. So did George Washington. We don't look at them that way now, but it gets back to trying to understand. There was a horrible James Bond movie. It's called Tomorrow Never Dies, but there's one scene in it where there's a guy who owns a newspaper, and a bunch of British sailors are killed, and he just takes one look at the word killed, scratches it out, and says murdered. Okay, you just changed everything, and it gives the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill, or thou shalt not murder. Huge difference between those two words, despite the fact that there are so many words that we can't agree on. I mean, we think of language as language is so imprecise. Language is very okay. If you say, "Do we have any salt?" You don't mean, "Do we have any salt?" You're not asking if there's salt at the table. That's not your question. What you're actually doing is asking about 6 questions and then making a request. The first question is there any salt at the table? If there is any salt at the table, does anyone see it? If anyone sees it, are they capable of reaching it? If they see it and are capable of reaching it, are they willing to hand it to me? And if the answer to all of those is yes, then would they please hand it to me? That is all contained in, is there any salt at the table? You don't say it, but that has nothing. I mean, if somebody just goes, yes, Be like, okay, smart ass, you know, come on.
Also, do you know what time it is?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, my
So
wife often will say, would you like to do laundry? No, I wasn't thinking
No.
of it, and I don't like to do laundry. I don't think she really wanted to know my opinion of how much I'd like to do laundry.
oh, well, I just because again the way my brain works, you know, my wife would say, "Would you mind doing the dishes?" And I was like, "No," which means I'm going to do them because I don't mind. You know, I answered the question, not what she meant. I answered what she asked,
Yep.
not what she meant.
Yep.
And the difference between what you say and what you mean is extra, and that's why hearsay is not admissible in court. It's one of the many reasons, because people can say one thing, and two people will come away with two completely different meanings of the same thing. Here's one of the ones that I see misused all the time, and when they say, "Oh, he lied," what do you mean he lied? Well, he said something that wasn't true. That doesn't make it a lie. In fact, okay. Let's see if we can come up. Let's see if we can find a. Can someone here tell me what is the definition of a lie?
Well, I had a friend who would argue that any false statement, regardless of whether you know it to be false, was still a lie. He had a totally different definition in his
Oh,
head.
that
So
is not the definition I would use at all.
we argued about this all the time. Yep.
I would say
Would
there
you,
has to be intent. You have to have the culpable mental state in order for
Right.
it to
And
be a
this comes
lie.
up on the RFR helpline a lot because people are angry, and sometimes they're angry at their relatives. They've stepped away from the religion and they believe they were lied to. It's like you probably
Mhm.
weren't because your parents believe it. They were telling you what you now ascertain is incorrect information, but it wasn't intentional.
if
Sometimes
I
it
have
helps people when we have that conversation in that way, because then it's hard to be angry at somebody if you don't think they're intentionally misleading you.
Mhm.
if I'm colorblind and I say those socks are gray, but really everybody else perceives them as red, I didn't lie, is what most people consider because I did not have the intention of misleading. Okay, I am an assassin and I'm going to kill a king. So the king has requested some tea. I've said, "Yes, Your Highness, I shall go get you your tea." I take a cup of tea, pour some tea in it, and I reach for the poison. Inadvertently, I get the sugar. I pour the sugar into the tea, but I think I'm pouring poison into it. So I now have the intent. I go, give it to him. He says, "This isn't poisoned, is it?" And I say, "Oh, no, sir." Well, I'm actually telling the truth, but I think I'm lying. Is it a lie?
Mm.
I would say that it is. Because I would think of a lie as telling something that you know or believe to be untrue. Because I think we could make the argument that we can't necessarily determine whether or not, with 100% certainty, that things that we're saying are true. Um, we could all be in the case of the assassin. Later on down the road, we may all learn, something that all of us here in this room right now believe to be factual. Turns out wasn't. We didn't know it, but we weren't lying. Well, I'm kind of doing the reverse example, I suppose, but we could do that backwards. And I think whether or not you're correct doesn't matter. I think it's a lie if you are intentionally attempting to deceive by telling something that you believe to be an untruth.
Mm.
I
Does
think I think Nick disagrees. This is
does
interesting.
I'm not going to say whether I agree or disagree. I am going to ask um, if the intent is not to cause harm but to do good, is it a lie? So,
Mm.
for
Yes.
example, okay,
Sorry, I got to that really fast because that
yeah.
reminded me of my religious relatives, who kind of have that ends justify the means attitude, which is if you can trick people into doing what you want, by lying, but it's for the safety of their souls, it's fine. And
Um,
absolutely, I consider that a lie.
Are all lies immoral, or can there be moral
No,
lies?
I think there
Okay.
can be moral lies.
All right. So, I'll give the obvious example. Nazi knocks on your door and says, "Do you have
yeah.
any Jews in your attic?" The answer to that is no, no,
No,
sir. I have no Jews. So you have a moral lie. No, I actually agree with your. I very much agree with your. I think you've hit the nail on the head. But a lot of people think so. I think it is more problematic. I the assassin, did he lie? I would actually say no, he did not, but he intended to.
okay,
And
I'll accept that.
Mm.
but that gets back into, is, is there any salt at the table? Sometimes the intent matters, sometimes the intent doesn't matter. So somebody might tell me, oh, yeah, the assassin lied. And I'd say, okay, he didn't actually, but I'm willing to accept it because it's within the margins of how I define that word. That the intent really, he tried to lie. It was only by luck that he was telling the truth. So for most intents and purposes, yes, he lied. But if we're going to discuss as close to a truth, capital T, did he lie or did he not? No, he did not lie. What he said was true. He did intend to lie, and he attempted to commit a lie and failed. But there are so few times when that is a distinction that needs to be. But that's it. So when we talk about education, it's about trying to figure out, and what we call character is where people place these distinctions. The people who try to weaponize them and who try to sit here and say, well, there's a category and it has to go this way and you have to be X, Y, or Z. And that's one character. People who sit there and say, no, we can have gray areas, because life is unfortunately a shade of gray. Life is also infinitely complex. We will never understand 1/1 billionth of it. So what we do and what we call knowledge and education is the attempt to fit these into the infinite universe, into manageable categories that we can work with. I cannot every time I go to the table say, is there any salt at the table? If there is there anyone, boom, boom. So we come up with shortcuts. And these shortcuts are sometimes wrong, but they are ways we as finite beings deal with, for the most part, infinitely complex universe.
Do I dare try to make this more complicated by mentioning the fairly new phrase between lying and telling the truth? It's bullshitting.
I love that. I love that.
Right.
Phrase.
I'm going to post into the chat now. I just looked it up in the reason. Liars engage in conscious act of deception. Liars know the truth but attempt to hide it. Yada yada yada. Bullshitters don't consciously deceive. They just don't know or care about the truth. They ignore or reject the distinction between truth and falsity together. So 3 years ago, I interviewed Penn Jillette and happened to ask him what he thought of Trump because he was on The Apprentice with him. Right.
Oh, yeah.
He said, you got to know him quite right. He said, oh, and I asked him, is he a liar? He said, no, he's a bullshitter. He just doesn't know when he's telling the truth and doesn't care.
Oh, I knew a guy, some idiot said he was the president of South Wales or something like that. I don't know.
I think I heard about that guy.
That's bullshit. But there you go. That's an important distinction, right? Because that is an untruth, but there was no malintent. So you could walk away on paper, it's a lie. But nobody here thought it was a lie because there was absolutely no malintent. So it was just BS. It was social counter signaling. That's also what cops do this all the time. I love this one. They pull you over. They ask you, do you know what I pulled you over for? Now, whatever you answer, you're going to put an inflection in it. The inflections are great. So I'm going to take the sentence, is she blonde? 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 Oh, I forgot there's about 6 or 7 of them. I think I'm starting to get a little tired. Every one of those meant something different.
AI tool tried to read scripts and you could tell it's AI because they put the inflection on a nonsensical place in a sentence.
Yeah. So every one of the same words, every sentence had completely different meaning and subtext to it. So when you go to the cop and he says, do you know why I pulled you over? Speeding? You know, I thought I was within no, that's all I can think of. That would be a guess, but I was in the right zone. He's going to say, I asked him why I pulled, and he admitted he was speeding. Because there's no he's just going to take whatever inflection he wants, and there you go. So that's why I never answered that question, because whatever you say, he's going to take as an admission.
They may be fishing too, because if you say something like, "Oh no, did you see the body in the back seat?" Okay, now we have something to investigate here.
There's a cat in the trunk. Don't open it.
Right. You're on to me. Oh no, you saw me escaping with the money from the bank.
So
Yeah. People tell
uh,
on themselves sometimes.
yeah, they do. They do. Yeah, Trump is a bullshitter. It doesn't matter. Um, it doesn't matter whether it's true or false. That's actually completely irrelevant. Very much in the same way actually that magicians work too, which is he tries very hard. It's he just okay. He'll do 20 things. One of them works, and he's like, "That was my plan all along." And everybody who likes him sits there and says, "You see, he distracted everybody else with all those other things." That is true, but that's a post hoc rationalization. That's they, whichever one worked was going to be the plan, and all the rest were going to be the distractions. And if you throw spaghetti against the wall long enough, something's going to stick. That's the way he operates. It's not. He's done this, which is really fascinating. This is how he operates. He's realized he's got no real skill or talent. So he's learned, it's sort of like somebody in an office building who turns the temperature up to 78 degrees in every floor of the thing and makes everybody work there. After a year of that, you don't care anymore. You don't know. But you have all the business meetings there and you have everyone else go there. So everyone else is uncomfortable and you're perfectly fine. Everyone else wants to leave the meeting as quickly as possible and you're perfectly fine. He does that with chaos. Most people are very uncomfortable with chaos. He has learned to be comfortable in chaos. Not that he enjoys it. He doesn't sit there and go, "Oh, yeah, things are chaotic," but it doesn't bother him either. He really doesn't care. Create as much chaos as possible, and everybody else is freaking out. Nobody knows what to do. And the people who are now learning and working best with him are the ones who are now comfortable in chaos too, who don't care. Who, when he says there are 5 lights, will say, "Yep, I see 5. Oh, now there are 4. Oh,
Wow.
yep, I see 4." They don't care.
Yep, January 6th was a day of patriotism and just a
Yes.
party.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Well,
That's
I'm
it.
gonna
Yep.
keep caring and not be terrified. I think that's my takeaway from this evening's program. And on the note of chaos, it is time for us to wrap up and go to our hangout. I know, Nick, you mentioned you have another engagement after this. Is that happening right now, or do you want to stick
Yes,
around for a little bit?
it starts at 10. So we're going to do a show. In Time is going to do a show. We're covering um, what we believe is an attempt to circumvent posse comitatus. What Trump is doing is incrementally. He didn't just wake up and say, "I'm king." He's deploying the U.S. military along the entire border, but there's a federal strip of land along the entire border, believe it or not, 60 feet. So all that is now a military base. There's a 60-foot wide military base along the entire border. And we believe what he's going to do is within about 7 days, he's going to escalate that to the Insurrection Act, meaning he can deploy them anywhere he wants to, use them as police. This is in violation of the Constitution and in violation of posse comitatus. And then we believe at that point, he's going to start having certain officers, and he's already replaced generals with ones who are loyal to him, not the Constitution, to him. And so that's what we're following. So it's going to be a little, I hope it's enlightening, and I hope we can leave with a sense of empowerment. It is an educational channel. We call ourselves an educational program, but we dive right into the thick of what's going on and we try to dissect it as best we can. So yeah, that starts. But the name of the show is In Time. And somebody pointed this out in like our second or third one. It's always in time, but it's never on time. So I can be a little late because that's kind of our motto.
Are you saying you could be just in the nick of time?
That's our other show. And I'm
Oh,
not kidding.
okay.
So we've got downtime, which is where we just hang, drink, do whatever. That's our after show is downtime. I like to say my mod is giving everyone a hard time, but he hasn't gotten that show yet. And then the show where they give me 5 minutes to explain any topic I want, 5 minutes pre-recorded, nick of time.
I
Not good.
love
And
it.
I hate it. I'm just like, I can't do 5 minutes. How about 5:01? No, it's 5.
5. I love it. Well, I dropped the link
Thank you.
into the chat so people could come over there and hear more on this topic if they would like. Or, of course, people are welcome to stay here and hang out with us. But also, if they want to go hop over to your channel too, certainly welcome to do that. Love for people to get to know more of your content too, and we'll hopefully have you back again. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us and spending your time
You're
here
welcome.
and sharing your knowledge with us. I think we have all come away with a bit more of an education on the topic of knowledge and education. And we thank you so much. And don't forget, everybody, join us again next week, same time, same channel. We're going to have Janice Selby talking about sex after purity culture. So definitely don't miss that one. Our friend Janice is fantastic. And she's also going to share about, I believe, an upcoming conference that you might be able to listen in on too. With and Glinda is speaking at that conference, by the way. So definitely join us to hear more about that next week. And follow us on the socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and of course, YouTube. Rob, how else can people get involved?
Well, I think they can get involved by volunteering for recovering from religion. We've learned that healing can also come from helping others, and the volunteers here find meaning and purpose. All of the services that we supply are done by our volunteers. We're always in need of more people, and there's all sorts of roles besides working the helplines, which is the one that gets, we're thankful, advertised on the line and the ACA shows. But some people think that's all we do. But no, we have this show. You can help us put this on. We need hosts here. We need people to do the editing, to put them up on our audio podcast and the video. Yeah, all of that. We need people to find and vet and post the resources that go on our resource channel. We need people to host our support groups, to support the online community that you heard about before. We even need people who are IT professionals to modify and update our software to help our clients and our agents. So to apply to volunteer, fill out the form on our main page. There's a volunteer button right at the very top. And lastly, let me mention that there's a 3-minute video on our main page that you can watch later or share with anyone who you might think could use our services. It's just 3 minutes long and it goes through all of the services that we offer.
All right. Thank you, Rob. And I want to give Daryl the floor for just a minute. I know, Nick, you've got to run off here in a second, but I want to give Daryl just a minute to give us some of his comments and thoughts on the program. If you have time to stick around, Nick, if you have to bounce.
Well, I was going to say no, but Daryl knows the verse, so the floor is his.
Well, I just want to say thank you. You scared the shit out of me tonight. Thank you. I appreciate that too.
That again, Piaget. Apologies. You're welcome.
Well, yeah, I appreciate the difference between terrorized and scared, because I think that's a really valid point. And we need to pay attention and we need to stay focused and not let ourselves be paralyzed, because flight, fight, and freeze. Freeze is what terror is, and we don't need to be freezing. We need to be thinking ahead about this. But anyway, 1984 was a crazy, scary book for me too, Nick. I probably read it a couple times in my life, of course, many years ago. But wow, I'm 74 years old. I read it back in the 60s, and now I'm thinking, oh, I'm living through it. I had no idea that I might be doing this. I told Gail on the chat, well, when you were talking, why the hell did I get chosen tonight to do the RfRx moment? Why did you give it to her? She's the politician. Anyway, so yeah, it has been a difficult discussion, but I think it was valid. It's worthwhile. It's something that we're a nonprofit, but we are not prohibited from talking about the current culture and environment. So anyway, thanks for bringing this tonight.
And I'll point out, I don't think Trump is religious. He certainly knows nothing about the Bible, knows very little about the Christian God and or ethos or pathos. But he is very aware that religion is a powerful tool. He has had the first ever White House Office of Faith. The woman who has been put into that office is insane. She is
Paula
certifiably
White.
insane. Yeah. And she did the dancing, and then she walked into the conference room and said that basically wherever she walked, she sanctified it. And somebody said we should do X, Y, or Z. She said, I'm not doing that because Trump doesn't want to do that. She is installing Trump as the second coming of Jesus Christ. So
Yeah.
I will say this again, as a student of history, as someone who has these discussions every single day as part of, I actually do YouTube full time. So we discuss this. I will tell you, atheist organizations will be on the chopping block. They were, by the way, in Germany. People, most of you who've had those discussions know, oh, Hitler was an atheist. Again, I think Hitler didn't care, but atheists were just as bad as Jews as far as they were concerned. And the reality is, with a faith office, Christianity is going to get more power so long as they're willing to play ball, and they were the first term. So just as a caution to all religious organizations that religion is about to have a major resurgence, and it's not because anyone really believes it or wants it, but as a shibboleth, excuse that I wasn't even intending, but for whether or not you believe in Trump, because it is religious hysteria at this point. And
Right.
Hansen, oh no, it's Hassan. Stephen
Hassan, right.
Hassan said, but using the bite model, their religion. So it's the line, white nationalism is a huge problem, and it's about to get a lot bigger very quickly. Don't mean to be the bearer of bad news. And again, it's I say that as if I know it for a fact. I'm about as sure as I can be when predicting the future. It's not quite the sun is going to rise tomorrow, but it's not a guess either.
Well,
all right.
Yep. Oh, I was just going to say, when I wrote my book, The God Virus, I basically I go through all this in the religious political sphere, and I predicted it would get worse. I had no idea it would get this bad. I mean, my prediction was way off. I'd make a bad profit, by the way, if that were the case. All right. Well, let me move.
I'm going to say, but he completely supports Israel. No, he does not. He does not support Israel in the slightest. He supports Benjamin Netanyahu. Those are two very different things.
Very different. You're right.
He doesn't care about Israel.
We're going to be, just want to let everybody know, we're going to be tabling and having parties and stuff at the American Atheist Convention. If you're going to be there this next weekend, come join us. Come say hi to us. And we all, it's like the party central for what we do. And hopefully won't be our last American Atheist Conference. Who knows? Also, we'll be tabling and talking at American Humanist Association in June. We'll be at NanoCon in July. Of course, we've got our own excursion. So if you want to meet us, if you want to help us, you want to join up and connect, then come to one of those conferences. And last but not least, if you enjoyed what we got from Nick tonight, and you like these kind of programs, consider donating. We appreciate any monthly donations or one-time donations. It's greatly appreciated and keeps this whole thing running. Thanks again, Nick.